I'm here with Nick Stewart from Stewart Financial Group. There's been some speculation around the removal of GST for fruit and veggies. Can you give us your assessment as to the trade-offs of having a universal system that captures everything versus carve-outs for specific items?
Yeah, that's quite a political chestnut, that one. So look, we have a very, very clean and elegant GST system, or effective sales tax. It's the envy of many in other jurisdictions. The fact that it's so clean and simple because it's on every good and service, irrespective of what it is, if it's fruit and veg or if it's medical supplies or kids' clothing, it's on everything. And on that basis, it's very, very simple to administer, very, very clean. Once you start removing certain items that are exempt, you open it up for lobbying, for litigation as to what's the definition of this and that. The story in Australia used to be, so the hot cross bun, was it subject to GST or exempt from GST versus just a plain bun? So it's all these the subtle nuances that actually have massive downstream effects. Now, if you could imagine also, when you've got a really clean system, a small business, of which most New Zealand businesses are small, SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises, they can easily complete our GST at the present time. Once you start to have carve-outs and distortions, it's much more difficult for smaller enterprises to run those calculations versus the larger end of town that has, specific staff that handle those issues and, tax and compliance.
You've mentioned Australia as an example. I mean, I guess it happens in other countries. So what can we glean there? You've touched on it briefly. What else can we glean from overseas experiences?
Well, the easiest thing to do is just to have it clean and simple and not have those type of distortions. So just leave it well alone. The fact is that it will cost us between $300 to $400 million to exempt fruit and veg. Initially, that's just the expected number. It could be bigger, but then you've also got the compliance costs over and above that. Now, the fact is that if we do exempt it, well, where do we raise the capital to replace it? And that's the conundrum, because if it's effectively like if you give someone a tax cut, what, do we reduce the services? Or do we levy somebody else more than they're currently paying to make up the shortfall? So that's why I said it's a political chestnut at the current time. And one just hopes that that they stay the course and leave well alone, because a lot of people have said that ours is one of the easiest to administer sales or GSTs, or systems of tax in the world.
Rateable values, just changing subjects, rateable values have come out for property owners. What's the reaction been so far out there?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people, those that actually go online and check to see what their property values are using some like an AI tool, such as, homes.co.nz or OneRoof, you can go in and get every fortnight your property value updates using an algorithm on sales data that's coming over the previous fortnight or 4 weeks. Now, you'll notice at the moment that your latest government valuation for local rating purposes has come out, and it's actually, on most cases, for most people, it's a lot higher than the current market value. This doesn't happen very often. So for the most part, the government valuation is less than market value, and I think it was the last time this occurred where it flipped was that kind of 2010 through 2012 period. So a lot of people are sitting there saying, hang on a minute, I'm paying rates on a value that's higher than the market value of my property today. And that'll have a few people asking a few questions, and I'm sure there'll be a few people who object to their valuation as a result of that. But it's just something that you don't see come, it's like a lunar eclipse. You don't see it very often.
And broadly, we're now 5 months on, I guess, from Cyclone Gabriel. I guess, can you give any sort of broad update of how things are tracking in Hawke's Bay, I guess, from the financial fallout from that event?
Well, those people that weren't affected, it's been business as normal and they're getting on with things. Those that were affected are still waiting for, the current bailout package that's coming from government, which has been presented, as I understand, to local councils and the regional council. But the problem is it's been presented to them and they now have to agree to it. The government, the Labor government, would really like for that to be completed, if you listen to what the Prime Minister has been saying. But the fact is it hasn't yet been agreed to. As I understand, it's from what we've read, or what we can read, the onus of responsibility from a fiscal viewpoint on the local councils is actually quite large. Now, many of them actually have quite a lot of debt, and anyone can go and look at the debt on what each council has. For example, the Taxpayers Union this afternoon released all of that information. You can just log in and put in your address, your postcode, and it can tell you exactly how much debt each council has, and it's actually quite a lot. And the cost of servicing that debt is increasing because of the interest rates globally have increased. So, unfortunately, we are going to have to borrow some additional capital in the form of bonds. We're going to have to raise some capital, and the ratepayers are going to have to pay a little more. So the question is, how much more can we pay? And that's the part that none of us quite know yet because it hasn't been agreed. But you would, if you think about it from a political viewpoint, would you prefer to negotiate with a centre-left government in the form of Labour, or now, where the cupboard's almost bare because things are getting a little tight, or would you prefer to wait until the new year with potentially a centre-right government, if there is a change of government? Many would say, well, I'll take the bird in the hand rather than two in the bush.